can sit here.
Greetings to everyone online. I'm happy to see both familiar names, dear friends, and new names as well. Hare Krishna. Between 9 and 15, something like that.
Usually we go, like the speaker will go around 9 or 5 minutes after 9, and then do crowd speaking of discussion until about 9.
Okay. So speaking until 9 and then expecting after 9.
9, it finished something. It's 5 minutes before 9 or 10 minutes after 9. But we go up to 9 usually.
Okay. So, we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, Text 5.
Well, 4 or 5. Chapter 3, text 5. Chapter 3, chapter 6.
Text 5.
Text 5, okay. Yes, good.
Canto 3, Chapter 6, Text 5. Parena Vishathasvasmin Matraya Vishvasriganaha Chukshobhanyonyam asadya Yasmin Lokascharacharaha Parena Vishathasvasmin Matraya Vishvasriganaha Chukshobhanyonyam asadya Yasmin Lokascharacharaha Parena Vishathasvasmin Matraya Vishvasriganaha Chukshobhanyonyam asadya Yasmin Lokascharacharaha
Parena Vishathasvasmin Matraya Vishvasrigana Chukshobhanyonyam asadya Yasmin Lokascharachara
Parena Vishathasvasmin Matraya Vishvasriganaha Chukshobhanyonyam asadya Yasmin
Lokascharachara. Would anyone online like to repeat?
Parena Vishathasvasmin Matraya Vishvasrigana Chukshobhanyonyam asadya Yasmin Lokascharachara
Yasmin Lokascharachara. Word for word. Parena, by the Lord. Vishata, thus entering. Tasmin, by his own self. Matraya, by a plenary portion. Vishvasvik, the elements of universal creation. Ganaha, all. Chukshobha, transformed. Anyoyam, one another. Asadya, having obtained. Yasmin, in which. Lokaha, the planets. Chara acharaha, movable and immovable. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhaycha Nanavinda Bhakti Vinata Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. As the Lord, in his plenary portion, entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all movable and immovable creations rest. Purport. The elements of cosmic creation are all matter and have no potency to increase in volume unless entered into by the Lord in his plenary portion. This means that matter does not increase or decrease until it is spiritually touched. Matter is a product of spirit and increases only by the touch of spirit. The entire cosmic manifestation has not assumed its gigantic form by itself, as wrongly calculated by less intelligent persons. As long as spirit is within matter, matter can increase as needed, but without the spirit, matter stops increasing. For example, as long as there is spiritual consciousness within the material body of a living entity, the body increases to the required size, but a dead material body, which has no spiritual consciousness, stops increasing. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, importance is given to the spiritual consciousness, not the body. The entire cosmic body increased by the same process that we experience in our small bodies. One should not, however, foolishly think that the individual infinitesimal soul is the cause of the gigantic manifestation of the universal form. The universal form is called Virat Rupa because the Supreme Lord is within it in his plenary portion. Translation again. As the Lord in his plenary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all movable and immovable creations rest. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminita Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuron Militamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyayevacha Patithanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm asking for the blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas, in person and online, for their blessings, so that I may speak something that is in line with our parampara and nourishing and pleasing to the devotees. And I'm particularly asking for the blessing of those devotees who have been practicing bhakti longer than I've been alive, appreciating their presence and appreciating Tir Govinda Prabhu for inviting me to speak today. So there was a statement in this purport that stood out to me. I think it's the fourth statement. The entire cosmic manifestation has not assumed its gigantic form by itself, as wrongly calculated by less intelligent persons. So who are less intelligent persons? That's an interesting phrase. Srila Prabhupada came to the West because of the fact that in the Western world we have completely forgotten about the presence of the soul, about the presence of the spirit and matter. Generally, Srila Prabhupada was observing this trend, that the more educated a person became, the more atheistic they became. Until you get, Hirdayananda Maharaj likes to make this joke that almost universally, the head of the religious department at universities is an atheist. Otherwise, you're not a proper head of the religious department. There's a few exceptions here and there, but that's the general trend. And so when Srila Prabhupada speaks about intelligence, he speaks about spiritual intelligence. He speaks about again and again in his purports that the person who's practicing Krishna consciousness, who's engaging themselves in Bhakti Yoga, they have achieved the perfection of intelligence, the perfection of life. And even though externally they may not have a PhD or a master's or even a bachelor's, maybe they never went to school. Perhaps it's some simple person out in the countryside tending their farm. But if they're tending their farm with the consciousness of Krishna consciousness, then they are the most intelligent. So this was Srila Prabhupada's definition of intelligence. We may have so many academic qualifications. We have devotees, and we love them very dearly, who are Sanskrit pundits, who can quote verses and shlokas from texts you haven't even heard of before, or incredibly rigorous in logical argument and philosophical discussion. And these are all wonderful skills that can be engaged in Krishna's service. But the standard example, what is the one in front of the zeros? These are all zeros until you put the one in front of it, and that's Krishna. So, less intelligent persons. Srila Prabhupada was seeing that in the Western world, less intelligent persons were increasing by the number. And not only that, but even worse than that, there was a complete manipulation, distortion, misinformation of what intelligence means. And so Srila Prabhupada came to present a different definition of intelligence than what was popular in the Western world. There's a lovely book that many devotees, I'm sure, will be familiar with, the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, which is an account of Srila Prabhupada's life, his biography, going all the way from his birth, his living in India as a young student, and then part of Gandhi's movement, and then coming into Grihastha ashram, and then eventually preaching in the West. And in the beginning chapters of that book, there are beautiful sections that speak about how he was preaching as a Grihastha, even while he had a wife, even while he had a family, even while he had so many duties and responsibilities. Sometimes we hear that he was working in a chemical factory, but not only that, he owned a chemical business and he was running it independently as an entrepreneur. And even amidst all this, he was constantly looking for opportunities to preach bhakti. Even the sannyasis and the brahmacharis at the nearby Gaudiya temples, they'd always invite him to give class because they saw, wow, this Abhay Charande, he's very special. And so at that time, this was the time of World War II, and then coming into the Cold War, mass conflict in the world. And Srila Prabhupada would read the newspapers all the time because he was keenly interested in what's happening in the world, because he could see the world needs spiritual life. All of this warfare, all of this poverty, all of this suffering is due to a lack of spiritual consciousness. He was firmly fixed in that. Even when, both in his youth in Grihastha ashram, and then later when he came to India with his devotees in the 70s, and there were bombs falling on the place where he was visiting, and everyone was evacuating, and there was no food. What was he doing? He was running around trying to print newspapers, back to Godhead, trying to educate people. We need spiritual life. People told him he was crazy. What are you doing? Get out of here. And they say, no, the bombs can't hurt us. And why? Because we're spirit souls living eternally. So in this verse and in this purport, we're speaking about how the spirit soul is what animates material reality. And this is a key essential point of Krishna consciousness. This is what we're trying to develop and cultivate. And it's not that hard to repeat. Any bhakta who's been around a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks can say, you're not this body. That's where Krishna consciousness starts. Srila Prabhupada would say again and again and again and again and again, you are not this body. So it's not that hard to repeat. But to actually realize it, to actually live it, that's much harder. Bhakti Tirtha Swami at one point said, you've learned everything you need to know about Krishna consciousness within 6 months of coming to the temple. The rest of your life is just trying to apply that into your life. And so it's fascinating, this story, this tradition, this culture that we've been given by our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas, by Srila Prabhupada and all of the spiritual teachers before him, who have been passing down this incredible fruit of Krishna Bhakti ever since the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and even before then. And these are the most exalted truths. Right now we're in the month of Damodar, the month of Kartik. We're lighting lamps and giving and presenting them, offering them to Yashoda and Damodar. Every day we're singing the Damodarastakam, and in the Damodarastakam, when we read the translations of those verses, they speak about, Lord, I don't want liberation. I don't want anything. I don't even want Paramatma. I just want your childhood pastimes. I want to see you as a toddler running around your mother's house, leaving footprints of butter all over the floor. That's what I want. That's something incredible. That's, some people would say, blasphemous. What other spiritual system, religious tradition can offer this mood of intimacy, where the pure devotee in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line completely kicks out on reverence. They appreciate, oh yeah, Krishna is the creator, that's nice. Krishna is in charge of everything, he's paramount, that's nice, but I want to hang out with Krishna. I want to play with him in Vrindavan. Play with him like the gopis, play with him like the gopas, like Mother I want to chase Krishna just like Mother Yashoda chases him. I want to hug him and cuddle him just like Nanda Maharaj. But to reach those exalted truths, this beautiful gem, this jewel that our lineage is presenting, first we need to take a few steps down and just start with where we are. And the first step is, I'm not the body. Because only once we actually recognize what is the spirit soul, who am I actually, can we engage in the activities that the spirit soul engages in, rather than what the body engages in. And so when Srila Prabhupada came to the West, he came to revive an understanding of the spiritual basis of reality. Life comes from life. It's the title of one of his books when he was presenting talks, and he would say this frequently: life comes from life. The scientists are telling us that life, there's some primordial soup on planet Earth, early planet Earth, and then some lightning struck that primordial soup, and the lightning made the chemicals combine in just the right way, so that then we have bacteria somehow, and the bacteria eventually evolved into us with our cars and mobile telephones and houses and everything, and life insurance policies. So Srila Prabhupada would say that that's nonsense. And he was keenly concerned that so much of the Western world had completely bought into that worldview, that atheism was so prevalent. In his pranam mantra, we hear Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Pashyate Deshatayane. That Srila Prabhupada came to the West to kick out impersonalism and voidism, and what we would call atheism. This idea that everything is just a combination of matter. Recently, I've been doing some work at the Bhaktivedanta Institute. And the Bhaktivedanta Institute, the point of the Bhaktivedanta Institute is to bring devotees who are scientifically, academically minded together. Astrophysicists, philosophers, chemists, geologists, biologists, to consider, okay, how can we respect what modern science has given us? So many beautiful technologies, feats of engineering that are supporting our lives on a daily basis. And at the same time, weave in the Vedic worldview, how to create a science based on spiritual principles. And the founding kind of inspiration, motivation for the Bhaktivedanta Institute is this understanding, this intuition, that if you start from a place of everything's just molecules and atoms combining together, then there's no hope. There's no love. There's no free will. There's no relationship. If I feel affection for someone, it's just a firing of hormones and chemicals in my brain and certain synapses in my neurology. If you want to be depressed, just meditate on that for 5 minutes and you'll be very depressed. It's a very sad existence. And it doesn't hold. People still try to find something. Like there's this education in chemistry and neurology and psychology, and so atheism is prevalent. At the same time, people are still seeking for something spiritual. People have the intuitive faith that no, this love that I feel for someone, that's something real. I feel that. This consciousness through which I'm perceiving reality, that's something real. The intuition is there. And so although there's this big tsunami of academicians and philosophers and scientists kind of pressing down that yes, everything is just matter, intuitively we feel that that's just not right. Even sometimes you'll hear that there'll be a rigid, staunch atheist, but as they're coming up to death, as it comes to those final moments, maybe they're dealing with cancer or old age, there's frequent stories of this, that yeah, they'll try out prayer, because well, what if? I mean, what if? I thought you were confident. You based your life on atheism. So
it is said that there are no atheists in foxholes.
no atheists in foxholes. Yes. And so we can say that we never die. And one could respond, well, of course we die. I see people die all the time. You see it on the news, people die. I say, no, we never die. And you can say, well, okay, well, the body dies, but we don't die. Even that's not totally true though, because the body was never alive in the first place. This body is made of the same stuff that this floor is made of, that the chair and the stool are made of, that the ceiling is made of. It's just matter. Just a bunch of carbon and sulfur, phosphorus, hydrogen, nitrogen mixing together to create this meaty thing that we kind of lug around through reality. But really, it's just matter. And we see that because when a person passes away, suddenly the body becomes inanimate. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada would use the example that no matter how attractive someone is, once they're passed away, they become disgusting immediately. Oh, the dead body. Dead body. They were beautiful yesterday. What happened? They're not still beautiful? So it's the spirit soul that provides beauty and life to matter. And so this is what we're called to understand, that matter ultimately is dead. It's just stuff. Beautiful things come of it. Creative expression comes through it. Incredible creations, dynamic phenomena come from it because of the fact that there's a spirit soul operating it. And then in this verse, this is speaking about the Virat Rupa, where Krishna is manifesting as the universal form. And earlier in the second canto and into the third canto, Shukadeva Goswami was describing how we see the trees and the grass as the hairs on the Lord's body, and we see the mountains as the Lord's spine, and he gives all of these examples of how we see Krishna in the universe. And so when we look at our own experience of reality, we see, okay, this body is dead, but I am a spirit soul animating it. So in the same way, well, I see lots of motion, lots of dynamism in reality. I see lots of stuff happening and transforming and evolving. And so what this verse is telling is that, yes, just like the spirit soul is manipulating this body, making this matter alive and vibrant and allows it to do things, similarly, wherever we see dynamism and movement and evolution and growth in the world, there's a spirit soul behind that. And so ultimately we have a personal reality where personalism means not just that I'm a person, I have intrinsic individuality. It's not an illusion. I'm actually real. I'm a person with an individual personality. But not only that, we start to look, okay, the sun is a personality. The moon is a personality. The planets are personalities because they're moving and orbiting and they have all kinds of resonances with which they're kind of interacting with each other. We think about the rain and we think about the wind. The wind isn't just a wind. We would say it's Vayu. The sun is not just the sun, it's Surya Dev, demigod, who's the king of heavens, Indra Dev. And ultimately, this entire cosmic creation, evolving and moving in so many ways. We see the stars in the night sky rotating and the constellations rotating across the astral globe, and we're seeing galaxies and universes and so many beautiful, gorgeous, incredible things outside. And so this verse is telling us that yes, this reality is a personal reality. The cover of the first canto of the Bhagavatam has an illustration where it has the spiritual world with Radha and Krishna there. And then it has the spiritual planets, and that has the Brahma Jyoti, the spiritual light emanating. And then Srila Prabhupada describes that based on, well, the Vedas describe, and then Srila Prabhupada repeats and elaborates it for us, that within this spiritual sky of infinite light and brightness, sometimes a little cloud appears in the corner of the sky. But that cloud, a cloud can't do anything on its own. It's inanimate. But then once, firstly, Lord Vishnu, Krishna comes into the material cloud, suddenly things start to form, things start to create. And then after Krishna, after Vishnu comes into that dead soup of material elements, not just gross elements, but fine elements, ether and mind and intelligence and false ego, these are floating around there. Vishnu comes in, and suddenly these can start to manifest bodies. And then after Vishnu, the spirit souls come in. And once the spirit souls come in, that's where we see the propagation of bodies. And we see so many bodies coming into existence so that the spirit souls can fulfill their karma, so that they can fulfill whatever desires they have. And ultimately, so they have an opportunity to gradually cleanse themselves, purify themselves until the point where they can start to awaken Bhakti. And then upon awakening Bhakti, to reconnect with Krishna, to come back to the spiritual world. And so this is what we as Vaishnavas, as Bhaktas, are called to see, that we are not the body. And when you hear the disciples of Srila Prabhupada speak, they often remark that, yes, Srila Prabhupada would always say again and again and again and again, you are not the body. Again and again and again. And we just, Krishna consciousness 101, you are not the body. And the disciples have said, I'm repeating it, so it's a little rude, but they said it, so I can say it. But they would say, yeah, he kept repeating it because we're so dull here in the West. We're so thick-headed that it takes that much repetition, every purport, every lecture, every verse, every conversation, before we finally start to get, oh, I'm not the body. And the realization of this, I'm not the body, of not just understanding it as a philosophical truth, but actually living it, comes through spiritual practices, not to try and push down the body, push down the senses. Srila Prabhupada took an adamant stance against that. He said, sure, maybe there's 1 in a million people who can be a yogi in the Himalayan mountains, practicing Jnana Yoga, Paka meditation, just very, and using the mind and using philosophical speculation to slowly weed out the senses. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras are all about this. How do we bring down the senses? How do we calm them, quiet them? How do we create environments, practice pranayama, practice pratyahara and dhyan meditation, to put down the body so that we can start to be free from it. Krishna consciousness, much simpler, much easier, much more profound. This is an important thing to remember. This is the simplest process of yoga that is available to us, and it's also the most profound process of yoga. We don't usually find that in this world. If something's simple, it means it's cheap. And if something's worthwhile, it's expensive. But Bhakti Yoga is this special exception because it operates in a different polarity. It operates on the polarity of spiritual life, of spiritual principles. Bhakti is the most simple and the most profound. And so what Srila Prabhupada taught us to do is to don't worry about the body, don't worry about the senses, they'll be there. Just engage them in spiritual life. Don't stop eating. You don't need to stop eating for a month at a time or a year or what have you, but have prasadam that has been offered to the Lord. Use your tongue, you use your ears to chant and hear japa, to chant and hear kirtan. Offer flowers to the deities and smell those flowers and think about how they've been offered to the Lord. See the beauty of the world and think about how can I offer this to Krishna. It's said that when when Krishna's friends or lovers, gopas and gopis, are walking through the forest of Vrindavan and they see flowers, they're immediately spontaneously thinking, oh wow, such beautiful flowers. How would I make these into a garland for Krishna? It's not even a thought for them. It just comes spontaneously. They don't have to think about it or manufacture it. It just comes spontaneously. And that's what we're encouraged to do in Bhakti Yoga. And so devotional life, when outsiders have looked at it, for example, academicians or religious scholars, they say this is one of the most intense religions in the world. They're practicing all day long. They don't stop practicing. I mean, just the basics, 4 regular principles: no illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling. For some people, that's like, what? Then what do you do? What do you do with your life? And then on top of that, 16 rounds for initiated disciples. It's like, so that's another 2 hours of your day. It's like you can do so many fun things. You can go to the bar, you can go to the cinema, as Srila Prabhupada would say. You can do so many things, and you're chanting. And that's not the end of it. That's the minimum. The devotee is encouraged. Just right now, we had almost a 4-hour morning program that's still continuing, and now we're doing class. We're encouraged to read the scriptures on a regular basis, to engage in philosophical study, and also to associate with devotees and cultivate friendships where we can share our realizations and be uplifted by others' support, and also learn how we can support others. And we're encouraged to sing the beautiful songs of our acharyas, to learn them and study them and understand the mood that's coming down from them. And even service. Right here here we're in Alatra, Gainesville, right next door, we have Krishna lunch, where the devotees are coming together, and there's all these college students who are broke and just eat whatever they can afford. And here the devotees come in with freshly cooked vegetarian prasadam offered to Krishna, and serving hundreds of people in a day, sometimes over 1,000 people in a day. And so the devotees are encouraged to live a life of bhakti. Krishna consciousness is a lifestyle. It's unique from how many people in the world approach spiritual life. That may be on Sunday, that's my spiritual day, or maybe on Saturday, or maybe, yes, I have half an hour a day that I engage in practice, but the devotee is invited to consider more and more, how can I make my life a life of bhakti? From when I wake up before sunset to when I go to sleep after wake up before sunrise, go to sleep after sunset. And my experience has been, and in speaking with senior devotees, they've shared the same on more exalted levels of realization, that it gets easier. And in the beginning, there's so much mental anxiety and stress. Oh my gosh, but I'm doing this, and I have this responsibility, and these commitments, and these relationships. How do I, Krishna consciousness, I don't understand. How do I be Krishna conscious? Okay, Srila Prabhupada writes, you don't have to stop doing anything. You just have to be Krishna conscious. What does that mean? I don't understand what that means. How do I turn this into Krishna consciousness? And then as we progress, as we engage in the practice that's been recommended to us by our Vaishnava teachers, the mind becomes quieter and simpler. And the things in our life which are distracting from Krishna consciousness just slowly fade out naturally, not even through so much intense effort, but just our attention starts to veer away from it. The activities that support Krishna consciousness, they become more and more attractive as we come upon the process, as we develop the process for ourselves. And the things that are kind of in the middle, neutral, we still engage with them, and we begin to have more creative intuition about how we can apply those in Krishna's service. And we start to understand what it means to practice devotional service all day long. And so, Srila Prabhupada came to the West with this great pain, this great compassion, feeling the suffering of the Western world, and fully convinced that all of the problems in the world can be solved through Krishna consciousness, through understanding I am a spirit soul, I am not this body. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada's Gurudev, he would say that the only thing lacking in this world is Krishna consciousness. That's the only thing lacking. And so this is what this verse is inviting us to do. And this entire section speaking about the universal form and how the universe is animated by spiritual energy. First of all, I am a spirit soul. I am not the body. I want to do what spirit souls do, not what material bodies do. Material bodies, they die. I don't want to die. I want to be liberated. I want to be free. So how do I do that? Engage in the practices of Bhakti Yoga. The more we engage with them, the more we'll be clear and simple and straightforward in how we can make Bhakti an ever-present part of our life from the start of the day to the end of the day for the rest of our lives. And then also to look at the world and see that everywhere there's motion, everywhere there's growth, there's a spirit soul, which becomes the start of compassion for the world, for not just ourselves, but also all human beings, all animals, all plants, even things that we consider inanimate, like the sun and the moon and the earth. We learn that, oh, we're actually in a tremendous family here, working together. And the whole creation is designed to cultivate service for Krishna. And so we can all work together in that. And then ultimately, that, yes, just like the spirit soul animates this body, and without the spirit soul, the body fades away, withers away. And the same way, this universe is alive and vibrant and dynamic because there's an ultimate spirit soul, a different kind of spirit soul permeating it, and that's Krishna, the original spiritual energy of which we're a part. I think I'll stop there and open the floor for comments, realizations, questions, concerns, clarifications, whatever the assembled devotees in person or online have to share based on that.
Would you read the verse again?
Yes, absolutely. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, Text 5, translation by Srila Prabhupada. As the Lord in his plenary portion entered into the elements of the universal creation, they transformed into the gigantic form in which all the planetary systems and all movable and immovable creations rest.
I'll share that. I appreciate your focus. Take the controls of the online.
A question.
Okay, so Prema, then Damayanti.
Yeah, just a reflection. I appreciate that distinction between how current theories and education is based on basically matter is superior to spirit. It's the other way around. Spirit is superior to matter. This verse inviting us to look at matter that is expanding, that is growing. That's like being the cause of spirit, not the cause of matter. I appreciate that. And also, you emphasized several times, we're not this body, and still being fully challenged with that 101 lesson myself. No, I am my body. I feel it. I feel the pain. I feel the suffering. I feel the tiredness, and yeah. So just sharing that, and also like one question that's coming up for me since the beginning of this talk is how, it is said that we can't reach God through the intellect. We can't reach Krishna. And at the same time, we're engaging so much of our intellect through this. And so, yeah, I'm in the question of like, what does that mean? What does that really mean? I can't reach Krishna through the intellect. Yeah, we're engaging our intellect. Very profound.
Yeah. The things that I think of is, so one, regarding your first point, that the current worldview is that matter is superior to spirit, whereas we're being taught spirit is superior to matter. And this is something we speak about a lot at the Bhaktivedanta Institute as well, that it's a very sneaky and tricky thing that all of modern science is based on the idea that matter is fundamental.
Yeah.
And spiritual life comes from that. And then we come into this conundrum, because now a lot of people are interested in spirituality, not just people, but scientists. They're studying meditation and consciousness and human psychic ability, and subtle things. The problem is if you start from a principle that matter is fundamental, and then you think, okay, how can we study spirit with the understanding that matter is fundamental? The Vedas are teaching us you can't do that. They don't go together. It doesn't match. It's a square peg in a round hole. The Vedas are saying, no, spirit is fundamental. By studying spirit, then we can understand matter in profound ways. But usually that's not said in science. Science is presented like, this is empirical, this is truth. We can't study spirit with science because science begins from the premise that spirit comes from matter. And for the devotees, we understand that's flipped around. And then with, struggling with I'm not the body, I thought of a story. I heard from Prabhu at one point that they were living in a temple as a brahmachari in the ashram. And at one point there was a Prabhu who was very sick. They'd fallen down with some illness. And they were just resting all day, essentially. They were just on the floor, just in pain, suffering. And they would groan all the time because they were in so much pain. And at one point they just groan like, it's pain. And a new Bhakta was there. And the new Bhakta turns to this Prabhu and he says, Prabhu, don't you know? You're not the body. And so this devotee rolls over in his bed and he goes, Prabhu, you're not my body either. So I thought of that story.
And especially when I'm ill. I am my
Yeah,
body.
sometimes it's easier. I mean, when we're dancing in kirtan, it's easy to forget or not forget, remember that you're not the body. When you're ecstatic in kirtan or when you have particularly powerful experiences in Krishna consciousness. But yeah, when we're sick, when you're chanting japa and your nose is like stuffy and like, oh, this sucks. It's like, yeah, then it's hard to remember that you're not the body. And then the intellect, what I think of is that Srila Prabhupada would, in many things, in the mind and the senses and the intellect in service, he would say that these things are going to be engaged anyways, because they're intrinsically active. So he said, you're already serving. You're serving your family, or you're serving your country, or you're serving some principles, some human ideals, or if you think you're completely independent, you're serving your senses and your mind. So it's not a question of going from not serving to serving, it's a question of going from serving the material energy to serving the spiritual energy, Krishna. And so in the same way, the intellect enjoys grabbing onto information, categorizing it, organizing it, and understanding it. And so if we don't engage it, this kind of information in verses in Shastra and in philosophy and in discussing these things, then we'll find other things to engage in. And maybe we could get away with a more simple lifestyle in a simpler world. But now you don't really have a choice. Mm-hmm. You drive down the highway and there's these massive billboards advertising mostly law firms, right? Accidents and divorces and injury, get a lot of money from whoever hurt you. Goodness, there's sexual advertisement all over the place all the time. It's like a dentist office. And of course, who will they have as the model? A 25-year-old beautiful young lady, white glistening smile. Oh, of course. And television, radio, so many things. Even if you don't engage in it, people engage in it. And so you'll just hear the snippets of conversation or whoever you speak with. So there's a lot of material out there to engage with. And now we don't have full choice discrimination of what we engage with because it's being pushed on us so much. So to start to push it out again, that to me seems the purpose of engaging our intellect in these kinds of subject matters. So not only us, but the intellect starts to have a taste for, okay, this bhakti, and starts to not pay attention so much to all this noise coming in from outside.
I appreciate your answer.
Hare Krishna.
So Mother Damayanti had a question. Mother Damayanti?
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class. I really like what you shared about how Bhakti Yoga is the most simple and the most profound of all the yogas. And I had never really combined it like that, just in a personal experience, I've found there's challenge to, you know, uplift my, practice and consciousness. And but in comparison to the other yoga systems. And so, like, coming from my background, it's like the is this, it's not the most simple. It is like I'm not comparing yoga systems, because I didn't have a yoga background. Um, but like I have two sisters. They're coming to visit. My family's coming to visit today. And I'm not far from you. I just am busy this morning getting ready, but I'm like 15 minutes away from that house. But my sisters are coming. I don't want to argue with them about yoga, but they both like teach yoga. And my question is, I wonder if you have like suggested like angle to meet them where they're at. I mean, you don't know them, but like meet them where they're at. It embraced yoga, all the yogas, like be open-minded for myself to be open-minded to the yogas, but like what could I say? Like, is there like an open-ended question I could ask to like bridge between the standard like yoga studios in Orlando, Florida? Like it's just whatever, it's not bad people or anything. It's just there could be chocolate yoga there. There could be, like
Yoga, wine
huh,
yoga, wine yoga,
yeah.
yoga.
So yeah, so there's like that kind of studios they're going. So I just looking for like a bridge, like an open-ended question or like a point, not a argument, like a principle, just to like discuss like the yoga systems and devotion. So if you have any comments, I would be glad to hear.
Yeah. Simple and profound. That is Bhakti Yoga. Yeah. Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras defines samadhi, and he says when you can keep your mind concentrated on a single point for 2 hours, that's like the minor version of samadhi. And when you do 4 hours, that's a major version, and the 8 hours. And then when you can concentrate your mind on a single point, I think it's for 3 days, then you've reached like the topmost level of samadhi, and you're ready to move on to like Paramatma realization. So, that's just to give an illustration of that's the process of yoga. Usually we can't concentrate on one thing for like a few seconds. Maybe a very senior, spiritual practitioner, they have their mantra, they can concentrate on it for like 5 minutes at a time. So good on them. But yeah, I think the thing that comes to mind is, what is your goal? In Bhakti Yoga, we're trying to connect with divinity. We're trying to have a personal relationship with divinity, a personal relationship with God. And so, well, ultimately, Bhakti Yoga is about mercy and it's about love. All of the practices we do are either directly or indirectly opening ourselves up to a relationship with Krishna. And we see Krishna as the ultimate spiritual truth beyond anything we can conceive of. And once we've cleansed our hearts, we've pulled the weeds, watered the garden in the heart, and we're cultivating spiritual life, ultimately it's all for mercy, for love, to get Krishna's attention so we can start to develop a relationship with him. There's a beautiful purport by Srila Prabhupada in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I don't know where, unfortunately, but it stands out in my mind because it's one of my favorite purports. He said, Krishna consciousness does not depend on the mechanical chanting of the Maha Mantra. And you hear that, you go, what? I thought that's what we're all about, chanting the Maha Mantra. But he points out that no, you chant the Maha Mantra so that you're inviting Krishna into your life. Once Krishna comes, that's Krishna consciousness. That's cultivating in spiritual life. Bhakti Vinod Thakur would say that if you're chanting Krishna's names with a material mentality, without sincerity, they're just syllables. They're just words, just material sound vibration. It's when we chant to Krishna with the understanding that Krishna is in his names, that's when it starts to become spiritual. And yeah, our taste for japa is an indication of, okay, to what extent has that spiritual energy descended into the holy names? Once it's fully present, once we actually realize that Krishna is not different from his names, then we don't want to stop chanting japa. I mean, yeah, the great acharyas in our line, they would just, 16 rounds. They wouldn't dare stop at 16 rounds, 64, 100, 200 rounds, chant all day and night, because they had that tangible experience that, oh, this is Krishna. But so to circle back to the point, we're trying to develop a relationship with Krishna. And you can experiment with this, with your life, of what it's like to try and attain someone's affection by showing them appreciation, by doing things that are pleasing to them, by serving them. Or you can try to develop a relationship with someone by proving how intelligent you are and proving how physically fit you are. That probably won't work. And if it does work, that's probably not going to be a very fulfilling and nourishing relationship. So for the most part, practitioners of the yoga system today are impersonalists. They might not know that term, they might not identify with it, but the person trying to engage in spiritual life using philosophical means, or the physical means of pranayama and asana yoga, they're trying to make God come to them. You can't do that. If you think you can do that, you're underestimating the glory of Krishna, and you're underestimating he doesn't need anything. He created this whole universe. You can't offer anything to Krishna that he doesn't already have. But what he wants is love. And so if there's a debate, if there's a conversation about what's the best way to come to the spiritual truth, the devotee says, well, I consider the spiritual truth to be personal. Because if there wasn't personality in the supreme perfect source, then it wouldn't be perfect, because something would be lacking. So, because there's personality, what do I do to develop a relationship with a person? I do things that are pleasing to them. And I glorify them, I show my affection towards them. And for us Bhakti yogis, we're looking at our acharyas, because our acharyas are deeply embedded in Krishna consciousness. And so we're learning from them. Oh, they sung songs. Let me learn songs as well. Let me learn their meaning, their mood. Oh, they studied these books. Let me study these books as well. We're following the line of our teachers. And so that's where that discussion goes, on how to attain spiritual reality, that we understand that the supreme source is far beyond what we can ever accomplish with some stretches or some philosophy. And then to take it another step down, because a lot of yoga practitioners are not particularly interested in meeting the supreme source. Perhaps they just want some flexibility or physical fitness, or maybe they want to be free from stress, or they want to have a clear mind. And at that point, it's a difference of goals, really. Earlier, we were speaking about, okay, how do you attain the supreme absolute truth, the perfection of life? But if the other person isn't even interested in connecting with the supreme reality, with spiritual life, if they're content with some low-hanging fruits from spiritual processes, then it's a simple difference of goals. Okay, this is your goal. I'm trying to develop a loving relationship with the divine. That's my goal. And so my understanding is that this Bhakti Yoga process, that's going to help me in that goal the most. That's what I would say. That's where the train of thought is ending. I hope that that's helpful. Perhaps it stirs some ideas, some thoughts for further inspiration to blossom based on your own experiences.
Yes, thanks so much. Yeah, what is your goal? And then I love what you said about if you're wanting to gain the affection and trust of someone, do you do physical fitness away from them? Do you, do you become an intellectual and just study something, anyway, that was fun. My sisters are, have sincerity and sweetness, and they want self-realization. Not that they know what that is, but they want spiritual realization. So it's not just fitness for them, for sure. So, it's just a hodgepodge a little bit, but
So I think
I love them.
coming to that point, that the supreme perfect must have personality, otherwise it's not perfect. So how do you develop a relationship with a person? Yeah, develop a relationship with a person as opposed to just doing your own thing. And then the final thing that comes to mind when you were reflecting, I was thinking of this, that my observation has been pretty consistently that when I see people practicing processes other than Bhakti yoga, if you have a group of like devotees and Ashtanga yogis and other kind of spiritual practitioners in other realms, philosophers, you can't necessarily tell. Everyone's they're on their best behavior. They're really representing their spiritual tradition. But I see that when people start to come out of the Sangha, when they act in their everyday life, I'm not impressed with what people in other processes, how they live their lives. When I see senior devotees in Krishna consciousness who have been practicing for years and decades, like they're peaceful, they're light, they're focused, they're clear, they're satisfied, they're nourished. And not just like when they're in their practice, anyone can experience those things in a meditation. But Bhakti yoga, it becomes a 24/7 cycle. It's a powerful thing to experience. I don't see that with people practicing asana yoga or impersonalism or some philosophy or what have you. And I feel that there's probably not many productive circumstances where you could point that out. That would be kind of a challenge, some competition. But I feel for myself, just having that observation in mind, that supports me in Bhakti yoga, because then I remember, oh yeah, like I'm feeling myself growing throughout my day and not just when I'm sitting down for meditation in the morning. So that's something that comes to mind as well. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Nitya Gopal Prabhu. I'm glad to see you on today.
Nitya Gopal, you got your hand up. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhu, for the wonderful class. Just a minute. So just wanted to add some point what he was mentioning about physical yoga, about physical aspect of the yoga. I feel that I was reflecting on few verses from the Bhagavad Gita wherein Krishna says, "Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham," that a person will get how much ever he wants of me. If a person is seeking only physical fitness from the divinity, he'll get restricted to that unless he has that sincerity to understand deeper aspect of Krishna's personality. So the part of Ashtanga yoga as asanas, pranayamas, they're meant to give you some benefits. But if you just become happy with those benefits, then you become stagnant in your progress. Just wanted to share this.
And that's a wonderful verse to bring up. Yeah, Yayatamam Prapatinte, one of the famous verses from Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada really like that verse. But yeah, Krishna tells Arjuna, as one approaches me, so I reciprocate with them. As one surrenders to me, I reciprocate. So whatever we're satisfied with, that's where we'll stop.
Yeah.
So the devotee is called to not be satisfied until they reach the end. So yeah, if we want Krishna praying, we'll get Krishna praying. It's a little tricky and difficult, but again, it's been made much simpler and easier for our acharyas. But if we want the complete manifestation of spiritual experience, then yeah, we have to have an impatience, a dissatisfaction in spiritual life, an urgency, like I want Krishna. If we want relaxation, meditation, if we want impersonal life, if we want to know Paramatma, we'll stop there because that's where desire is taking us. But yeah, so thank you for bringing up that verse. It's very relevant.
And just to mention one more point to Dayamanti Mataji is that instead of trying different techniques, if we can evoke that sincere desire in a person to understand the reality, I think that would be much more beneficial than some other things will work. But I think the most important core thing is to evoke that sincere desire so that the heart stirs, they want more of Krishna and Krishna will reveal himself to them.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Hi Krishna. I just want to add some spice to our conversation. Because I never came to Krishna consciousness because I wanted to be with Krishna. I didn't come to Krishna consciousness because I wanted Krishna prem. And most of the people I approach in life, they don't want Krishna or Krishna Prema. You know, how many of us here present in this room really came to Krishna consciousness because we wanted Krishna Prem, or we had that goal? Probably none of us. So that's an important part of the conversation. And if it wasn't for the mercy of the devotees of Srila Prabhupada and then his followers, then we will not even know about that goal, what to speak of wanting that goal. So naturally, when we approach people, then we want to meet them where they are at, and then wherever their goal is, to find that spark, and then to support them to go to the next goal, or maybe not even speak about goal sometime, and give them a lot of passion. Or, you know, engaging kids and yeah. I just wanted to add that perspective. That's, yeah, I didn't have that goal coming to Krishna consciousness. For sure.
I can say the same.
And most people don't. But because of the mercy of the devotees carry with them Bhakti. When we can only get Bhakti from Bhakti. There is no other place it can be gotten. Nobody can have Bhakti and want Bhakti without being in contact with Bhakti. And thus, by the mercy of the devotees, then someone will, you know, receive the seed of Bhakti, and then that seed little by little grow into that desire. But the desire in itself is really advanced. To want Bhakti, to want pure devotional service, to want to have Krishna and a loving exchange, intimate exchange with Krishna is, you know, at the core of our heart. Of course, we can, you know, speak philosophy, but at the core of our heart is really elevated. Yeah, so to expect people, even yogis or people in the street, to want that, it's, you know, it's not how it works. Yeah.
I was thinking, based on what everyone's sharing about intellect and this yoga versus that yoga and Krishna Prema versus meeting them where they're at. There's a song, and I don't know who sings it, but it's one short phrase of it says, "To know you is to love you." And I thought that's, you know, like for me at least, to engage my intellect is to just to get to know someone so that I can love them. And so it's not like yeah, there's so much diversity in thought and scientific approach and everything, but if we can't win Krishna through that, then all of this engaging is just to get to here anyways. So like, you know, like why not like just open my heart, you know, like keep opening my heart and using these as tools to get closer to my heart. And then want Krishna Prema, to then want that. But in the meantime, okay, I'm just here as a human, experiencing my humanity and all the emotions and all of the difficulties and all of the beauty and all of that. And then to know you is to love you. So, okay, how do I get to know you? Do this, and do this, and through grace. Yeah, so to me, that's how they're all interwoven and connected. And it's yeah, quite simple in a way. Yeah.
Something sublime.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, I'm appreciating much the discussion, and about like 10 or 15 points related to your class, but we won't go there. Just I mean, intellect, intelligence. There's conversations where they took Prabhupada to meet some leaders of the Mensa Society. It's recorded conversations, and these are like, it's a society of geniuses according to the material IQ.
The top 1%.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
IQ scores.
Yeah. And so, and it's fascinating dialogue because they are intelligent and full of song and like that. But they were pushing, they wanted Prabhupada to take their intelligence test. And so, you know, of course, Prabhupada dealt with it in a complete transcendental way. But it's, in a few points he said, yes, and we would like you to take our intelligence test. And just like we said, no illicit sex, no gambling, no meat eating. It's just like, it's a basic like that. And they were just, what? What? Like, it's wonderful conversations.
That's a test you give them.
Yeah, it's a test he gave them. Yeah. They're like, what? So I appreciate how you handled the whole intelligence. I'm related to that. Well, two anecdotes that come to mind. One is, okay, I was living in my early years in the Middle East, and my first year or so, it was 83, 84. I was living in a town called Arad in the Negev desert. Arad in the Negev. I was studying at a place. It was an institute for those who are graduates with at least a bachelor's degree. World Union of Jewish Students. It was called WUJS was the acronym, and they had an institute there. And there was lots of classes. There were some classes in like Hebrew and things, a lot of classes in philosophy, and that was my first day, 1983. That was when I was first beginning to chant japa. It was before the kidnapping, many of you know the kidnapping story, and I hadn't moved into the ashram yet. And so, you know, I do the classes, and the colleagues were also, most of them were in their 20s, maybe early 30s. I was 22, 23 at the time. And so usually in the mornings I would go out. So it's this really quite a brilliantly arranged, it's this town village, but it's right in the middle of the desert. Some ingenious drip technology. They got water there from the Dead Sea and desalinated it. And anyhow, it's this amazing development town. Okay, so then I would just stroll. There's the town, and then you go like 10 feet out of the town. You're in the desert. You're in the desert. So I would have these wonderful walks in the desert. So in my classes, many of the professors and the students who were educated, they were non-theists or atheists. You quoted Vidyadhana Goswami about. It's like a qualification to be a director of a religious department. Not all of them. Some of the professors were rabbis and this and that, but many of them were secular humanists, like that, non-theist. Okay, and so I would stroll and do my japa walk in the desert, and then I would meet some Bedouins, and I befriended one fellow, maybe about my age, in his early 20s at the time. His name was Hassan. I spoke no Arabic, hardly. He spoke no English. Well, we had a little bit of Hebrew in common. So we spoke Hebrew. And he introduced me, like, these were Bedouins with camels and the whole thing. And so I would share, so we'd share with him about, you know, in these courses and the studies. And most of the teachers, they say, no, there's no intelligence, there's no person behind this. And Hassan, like literally no education. Not that, like, he didn't have 2 PhDs yet. Like, he probably did not have a 4th grade education. Okay, he had his camels and his like that. And he was just dumbfounded. He said, are they complete idiots? Because he would point to the vast miles of sand and the sky, and they go like, so your teachers can make this? Because like they can, these little buildings, you know, a 10-story building, but they can so they're just like, obviously there's like a higher intelligence in this most wonderful, great person. So just to illustrate your point that, you know, one of the points you made in the class is kind of the lower the education, the more common sense. Relatedly, I know you're in PPTC part 2 now, and a book we ask you to read is Changing for Good. When I first read that book 20 some years ago, I remembered something in there. Maybe you read it yet, but okay. So there's the researchers, and I think they're in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, some university in North Carolina. That's where the researchers were based back in the 80s or 90s or whatever it is. And they're doing a lot of research like on different habit change. And so then the social science research and the professors, and especially the social sciences in many universities, they're dedicated non-theists, especially. Actually, you can kind of tell where a university leans by the social sciences, like are they more towards humanities or more towards the hard sciences? But anyhow, so then they went into the nearby towns. And what they found out, apart from their research on smoking habit and drinking habit, what they found out in the nearby towns is that when the nearby towns would refer to the because geographically the university is on a hill, so the villagers and the farmers, they would refer to the hill as idiot hill. They would refer to it as idiot hill because, like George Orwell said, some ideas are so absurd only an intellectual could believe them. Hare Krishna.
All right.
Thanks for your class, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for your classes. So well organized and flowed. So fascinating knowledge.
I'd like to make one final point
Please.
as well. I'm really appreciating this point of like, yeah, like where do you, like you said, we don't come to Krishna consciousness for Krishna. I mean, I know for me, that wasn't the case for me. And for most people I know, it wasn't the case. And so it's, how do we develop an interest in engaging in Krishna consciousness in Krishna by meeting a devotee? I know I can say for myself, many other people can say they met a devotee, and they were struck by, you know, the character, the personality, the behavior of this person. Like, whatever they have, I want that. I know that was it for me. Tushta Krishna Prabhu was that person for me. You know, this first mentor of mine in Krishna consciousness. And even some people come to Krishna consciousness through Srila Prabhupada's books. But again, Srila Prabhupada spent a lifetime preparing to write these books. And he wrote them. So even the books are associated with devotees.
Well, it's present in his book.
Right.
Well,
and even some people say, yeah, the temple, the free vegetarian feast. When you eat down, you're going to chat with people. You're going to see how they serve you. You're going to taste the food. Who is cooking such delicious food? Where'd they get the recipe from? So even if it's maybe a step or two or three removed, ultimately it's by meeting a devotee, that we even conceive like Krishna. Like what is that? Who is that? And so that's why ultimately this is a preaching mission. This is a missionary mission. And sometimes those words, they have a lot of baggage, and so we get a little scared, like, oh, preaching. I don't like that. I would hold, though, that the greatest preaching we can do is to just develop a deep practice of Krishna consciousness. Because as we do that, we purify ourselves. We become empowered in spiritual life. And then even if we might not explicitly go out, give a book to someone, or explicitly teach Krishna consciousness, just the fact that we're being transformed, other people see that. And so, yeah, this is a preaching mission. And ultimately, I mean, can you imagine if it wasn't for this one devotee of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, the whole world outside of India would pretty much not know of Krishna at all. Maybe some like Hindu camps in like Bali and I think Fiji or something like that. Can you imagine all of Europe, all of North America, all of South America, all of Australia, completely devoid of even the opportunity to come in contact with Krishna consciousness? And this one pure devotee of the Lord, Srila Prabhupada, he changed the course of history. So that now we here can meet Krishna and have the opportunity to engage in it and Krishna consciousness. And so we're all called to preach. And that might not mean going out, Harinam Sankirtan, but it means cultivating ourselves. So when we speak with others, when we meet others, others can see like, oh, there's something about this person that really interested me. There's some spark, some glitter here that I want to get in touch with. So yeah, I'd like to expand that point, that it's by the mercy of devotees that we received Krishna consciousness. And also it's by Krishna's mercy flowing through us that others get Krishna consciousness. And then they pass on the torch to someone else. So yeah, I encourage everyone, invite everyone. Look for the opportunities to just show up as a devotee. You're not even explicit, like I'm a devotee of Krishna, but when we build character, people see that. And then that invitation begins. One can start to engage in Krishna consciousness. Thank you all for your contributions, your questions, your comments, your participation. Of course, to some of the values.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Right.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.